Coach Nikki's PCOS Revolution podcast, and we've got the awesome Melissa here with me tonight. So Melissa is from Utah. I'll let her speak about herself in a second. But as I say, I'm Coach Nikki, and I'm a specialist in polycystic ovaries, but I don't know everything, and I want to help you as much as I can. So I'm collaborating with all these awesome people who know what they're talking about, who can bring you more information to help you reverse your polycystic ovaries. And tonight it's about hair, because us ladies, we love our hair. So Melissa, how are you?
Hello. I'm good. How are you?
I'm awesome. It's horrible in Scotland at the moment, but never mind. How is it in Utah?
It is sunny and warm.
Our summer has been, excuse my language, shit this year. It's rainy and
so has ours. Interestingly enough, we have not had afternoon thunderstorms for years and years and years. And a good portion of our summer, just about every afternoon, we can count on some pretty good thunderstorms. So it has been wonderful.
No, you can keep sunshine and beaches all day long. Definitely. So we're getting people coming in now. So welcome to everyone coming in. But while you are here, let us know in the comments how you are, why you're here, and if you've got any questions, we are going to answer them for you as well at the end. Well, Melissa will be answering your questions. So Melissa, tell us a bit about yourself first.
I am married. I'm a mom of 3 kids. I am 41. I have been in the beauty industry for 24 years.
Wow.
And I am an associate trichologist. So I specialize in hair loss. This is something that I've been researching for more than 7 years.
Okay.
I started to notice an increase in my female clientele mention just casually at their appointments that they felt like they were losing their hair. And I started to notice a pattern and started taking note of it. And then after I delivered my youngest child, I started dealing with hair loss myself. So it became more personal and I became more passionate about it. So it has snowballed into what it is today.
Which is amazing, because I'll admit, as I love TikTok, you all know this, I love it. I have actually learned myself a lot from Melissa here, and I trust her information. So that's why I was happy to reach out to say, would you like to do this talk with me? And she was all too happy to do it. So her information is good. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring up the live in the group first, guys. Just give me a second on my phone. And I'm about to just be, here we are, I'll go to this one. It's all good, making sure we are live. So we've got people coming to the hello hand, but I can't actually see who else is here because it's all Facebook users, but do drop in there. And you're 41, I'm 42. So we're quite close. See, you're never too old, everyone. You're never too old to be, absolutely not. So I've got a few questions here just ready to be speaking to Melissa about that's regarding polycystic ovaries. So it was, as I help women with polycystic ovaries and hair loss, can you go into a little bit about what the main cause of that is for because there's quite a lot, but what's the main cause?
Yes. So first and foremost, it depends on what type of PCOS you have. So there are 4 different types of PCOS. One comes from birth control. One comes from estrogen dominance. One comes from the adrenals. This used to be known as non-classic congenital adrenal hyperplasia, but now this is known as a form of PCOS. And then insulin resistance. The 2 most common types of PCOS that are diagnosed are this non-classic adrenal hyperplasia and insulin resistance. So it's either most likely an issue coming from cortisol, your adrenals, being stuck in fight or flight or being in constant survival mode, or insulin resistance. In my opinion, and this is through all of these years of doing research and doing consultations with people, there is a large increase in women that are experiencing hair loss on the top of their head in their part line. If you Google the Ludwig scale for women, so the Ludwig scale is for women, the Norwood scale is for men. This will show you a scale of what hair loss from female pattern baldness or male pattern baldness looks like. Anytime that somebody deals with hair loss on here, on your part line, not the crown and not your temples, but your part line here when it's getting wider, this is related to your sex hormones. Now, to me, in the beginning, when I first started noticing clients that were experiencing hair loss, I would question myself kind of inwardly, like, what is it with this sudden increase in testosterone? If this type of hair loss is coming from testosterone, why are women seeing this increase in testosterone? So we know now that when you have insulin resistance, stagnant insulin that builds in the body is converted into androgens, which are male sex hormones like testosterone. The higher your testosterone, the more likely you are to have an increased amount of DHT. So DHT is a concentrated form of testosterone. Our hair in each follicle is shaped like a horseshoe, and it's plugged in to a capillary. So our hair feeds off of blood. DHT acts like a little piece of saran wrap that will come in and block the hair from the capillary, so it no longer receives nutrients. So these hairs are terminal hairs. These hairs will fall out, and then they're replaced with vellus hairs. So this is called miniaturization.
Is that the same as on your chin then, Melissa? The terminal hair on your chin as well?
Yeah, when you have a change in your sex hormones, you can start to see an increase in hirsutism, or your, whether it's your mustache or your chin. You'll also see an increase in body hair as well. Now, more often than not, when you see an increase of hair going from your navel to your pubic area, or even around your bum, this can be a sign of PCOS related to your adrenals, this non-classic congenital adrenal hyperplasia. But the two biggest hormones in relation to PCOS and hair loss are cortisol and insulin.
So in the UK, just it's probably harder to get diagnosed with adrenal type polycystic ovaries in the UK. Because you have to wait to go to an endocrinologist, and even then the doctor doesn't like sending you there. So they'll just put you away with the general, you have polycystic ovaries. They won't tell you here.
Which is frustrating because it's not enough to just get a diagnosis, right? To just be told that you have PCOS, but to not know what exactly is causing your PCOS. You're kind of taking stabs in the dark as far as what you're going to supplement with, or what medications would be right for you, how exactly you're going to address this. Do you know if the Dutch test is available in the UK?
It is, but it's very expensive. You have to go private. No doctor will do that for you. It's very
it's something that you can order online.
Yes, you can, but I think sometimes you even have to go out with country to get it. But it is available. But it can be up to like £700 for. That's a lot of money, for a Dutch test.
Yes, so it's about the same price here. It's pretty expensive here, but just as a heads up, the Dutch test is the most thorough way to check your cortisol. Depending on what test you do, they will do urine or saliva samples, and they're throughout the day. When you're looking at cortisol, we want to see what your cortisol is in the morning, the afternoon, and the evening to best determine how to approach that. But when your cortisol is in overproduction, or when you've been in overproduction for so long, so now your adrenals are fatigued and they're hardly producing cortisol at all, whether cortisol is high or low, like with almost every hormone that the body produces, you will see an impact in your hair loss. Now, when hair loss is related to cortisol directly, it typically happens around your hairline. If it's estrogen, progesterone, or testosterone, or insulin related, it's your part line. When it's cortisol related, it's your hairline in the front.
Okay, and when it's DHT related, then is this permanent? Is this can it be?
No. The rule of thumb is 10 years. Now, for years and years and years, we always believed as hairstylists or barbers that it was about 2 years. And now there's a pretty good understanding that the rule of thumb is 10 years. So if you've been experiencing hair loss related to DHT for 15 years, not all of those hairs have fallen out within 15 years. So those first 5 years, you're going to have a hard time, or it might be impossible to wake those follicles back up. But whatever hair has been lost within the last 10 years can absolutely be recovered.
Okay, that's good news, because there is a lot on TikTok I see that DHT is permanent, and that's scary to a woman, that your hair's not going to grow back.
Absolutely. And typically when you think about hair loss related to DHT, usually it revolves around men.
Yeah.
Because men are naturally supposed to have a higher amount of testosterone.
Indeed.
And men can have a higher amount of a specific enzyme. So each organ in the body will produce different hormones, and they use it as a form of communication. We use enzymes to convert hormones into other hormones. So the enzyme that converts testosterone into DHT is called the 5-alpha reductase. For years, it was believed that men must have genetically, and this is absolutely a possibility, but it was just assumed that men have this increased amount of this enzyme. So that's why they are more likely to deal with hair loss from DHT. They have a higher amount of testosterone. They have a higher amount of this enzyme. As we're seeing this increase in women, and with it largely being associated with insulin resistance, if you work to increase your insulin sensitivity through dietary changes, some people prefer to use medications. Some people prefer to use supplements specifically to also help bring their insulin levels down. But when you increase your insulin sensitivity and that pooling insulin, that stagnant insulin starts to go down, you will see less insulin converted into testosterone, which less testosterone will be converted into DHT. So ultimately, long term, the better you improve your insulin sensitivity, the better you will improve your hair loss from here on out. So you're not tethered to a medication or a supplement long term.
Sounds like what we were just talking about before we came on live, going down the rabbit hole. I did that the other day about insulin resistance, basically being the root of everything almost. So just really, we will be chatting about other stuff here, but just so I can say just now, if you want to go away and do one thing today after this, and it's your polycystic ovaries, try and get to the root cause of your insulin resistance, because there's so much you can do that would maybe take you a long time, but getting to the root cause of that would ultimately help so much other things around that. So
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's these rabbit holes, we go down them. All right, so most people think of hair loss as, like we were just talking there, as male pattern with polycystic ovaries. So we have chatted about this already, but there are actually a few different reasons. But how would someone typically find out what is causing their hair loss? Because there's so many avenues: malnutrition, anemia, inflammation. There's so many things. How would someone go about finding out what's causing it?
So first and foremost, it's blood work. And this is difficult because when you get into other countries, I mean, it's difficult in the US to get all of your answers, or to go into your doctor and say, this is what I want to have checked in blood work. It can be helpful before your doctor's appointment, a few weeks, a couple of months before, however long you want to go before, but to make notes of the way you feel. How do you sleep? What are your energy levels like? Is your skin dry? Are your eyes dry? Is your hair dry? Are there any specific symptoms that you are dealing with? I encourage everybody to do homework on specific symptoms.
Yes.
When this gives you more confidence going into your doctor of, this has been going on for this amount of time, I've done my homework, I believe it could be A, B, or C, so I want to have blood work done. Blood work is the best way to tell what exactly is going on internally, inside. 95% of hair loss is being caused by something off internally. It is a
Mm-hmm.
symptom that your body is giving you that something is wrong. But so many things can lead to hair loss.
Yeah.
So in order to better determine what is causing your hair loss, you have to start with blood work.
Good. It's not that easy. Like, it's probably all over the world, but even here in the UK, the doctors quite refuse you, and even then they'll do the basic and then say you're normal. You have to really fight for it
Yes.
over here. Because typically, I think what I would look for if someone came to me was maybe their inflammation, like their CRP levels,
Yes.
or their ferritin levels as well would be really important, or even their thyroid levels. A lot of women
Yes.
struggle with their thyroids and PCOS.
Yes. So there's very specific things that can be checked when it comes to hair loss specifically. You want to do a lipid panel. We want to see how your liver is functioning, especially if insulin resistance is an issue. In the liver, we have toxicity levels and we have sugar levels. The liver is filtering out both of them.
Mm-hmm.
When you are dealing with insulin resistance and you're not properly breaking down sugars in your liver, they can be converted into fat. When you have been diagnosed with insulin resistance, the likelihood of you developing non-alcoholic fatty liver is very, very high.
Yeah.
And one of the first ways that you can determine if this is an issue for you or not is your LDL, your total cholesterol, or your triglycerides can be elevated. In almost every consultation that I have done, or anytime somebody has sent me their blood work to go over things, almost every, I would say 95% of people, their LDL is elevated.
Yeah.
When there's an issue with your liver function, you can then, it's a domino effect.
Yeah.
You can then see an issue with the way that you are processing cortisol. You can develop an issue with estrogen dominance. You can see a change in the way you are synthesizing your thyroid hormones. This is a big one for people with hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's. When they are medicating, they are taking a T4 medication, but they're not properly converting that hormone in the liver. So they still have symptoms. They're still tired. They're still experiencing hair loss. It's an issue with conversion. So we synthesize specific hormones within the liver. We also store fat-soluble vitamins and minerals in the liver as well. So a lipid panel is very, very helpful. A full metabolic panel is very helpful. Specifically, we're wanting to check your fasting insulin. It's typically labeled as insulin, but you want to be fasting. And you generally want to have your blood drawn before 9 a.m. So fasting insulin, your glucose, and then your A1C. So issues with insulin resistance will show up in your fasting insulin first, then your glucose. Now, typically when your glucose is a little higher, you'll be diagnosed with prediabetes.
Yes.
And then your A1C is a 3-month average of your glucose. So typically when your A1C is higher, you're full-blown type 2 diabetes. You have a definite diagnosis. So a full metabolic panel is really helpful. Your C-reactive protein, your bun, we want to see how your kidneys are functioning. And then specific vitamins and minerals, vitamin D, ferritin, magnesium, and zinc, those directly impact hair specifically. And then all of your sex hormones. It's typically just estradiol that is checked in blood work. If you can convince your doctor to check all 3 types of estrogen, that's even better. Progesterone is very important, your testosterone and your free testosterone. Cortisol is very important. If you do check your cortisol, you want that checked early in the morning. And then it's even hard to get doctors to do an afternoon blood draw here. But even if you can convince your doctor to do cortisol in the morning. And then DHEA is another big one. I'm trying to think if I'm missing anything. Oh, and then a full thyroid panel. Now, typically doctors will just check TSH, but a full thyroid panel will give you a better insight as far as your thyroid. Now, just as kind of a frame of mind here, or a reference point, I like to see TSH between 1.8 and 3.0. So if you had blood work done and your TSH comes back as 1.4, I would keep an eye on this. I would put a pin in that and keep an eye on that. There's potential for a developing issue with your thyroid. Same if your TSH came back at 2.9 or 3.1. Whenever you're on the very threshold of being high or low, keep an eye on that. If you can convince your doctor to do a full thyroid panel, fantastic. But just as a reference point for TSH, if that comes back as potentially being high or low, maybe this will give you a little bit more motivation to be a little bit more demanding of, no, I suspect a thyroid issue. Let's do a full panel.
Thyroid is important, but just for reference, in the UK, the doctors will not give you medication or look further into it until you are over 4 in the UK.
That is frustrating.
So you could go in with all the symptoms of the weight gain, the fatigue, the brain fog, everything. It won't, till 4, they say, nah, you're borderline, so you have to fight to even get something here. And even then, they only check TSH and T4.
Okay.
They don't check
They're not checking your conversion.
No, they don't check T3 or they don't check the reverse T3, anything like that. It's only TSH and T4.
Okay.
But 4, I still remember that from years ago, and because I've got an underactive thyroid myself, guys, but it's all under control from years ago, and that's what they told me then. So they're not great here, and I'd imagine it's worldwide, and you have to fight to get it done, but you can pay privately for thyroid, especially.
Okay, that's good.
No, that was really good, because a lot of people that especially from my TikToks, I get asked a lot at the time, what about thyroid and all of the linked conditions? So it really is correlated quite heavily into polycystic ovaries. Right, what we got here? Women with polycystic ovaries are largely, I think we've answered some of these too, but I think a lot of the women will now be wanting, well, how do we fix it? It's the hair. So we're about to be helping you guys, don't worry. So women with polycystic ovaries are largely deficient in a lot of vitamins and minerals, which cause hair loss issues. So what would you be recommending to someone that is losing their hair? And as maybe just from the outset. So food, protein, like you say, ferritin, iron.
Yes. Yeah. So many things are required in order to have just healthy hair growth in general.
Yeah.
So our hair is the last part of our body to receive nutrients from what we eat. Now, anytime you consume processed foods or hydrogenated oils, especially if they're heated up, the rule of thumb with hydrogenated oils is if they are not heated, they don't cause an issue with inflammation. Some people will disagree with that. But depending on what your diet is, processed foods, when you're lacking protein, people that are vegan or vegetarian and they're not consuming specific, animal related foods, cheese, eggs, meat, those are the source of so many vitamins and minerals. So first you need to be aware of your diet. Are you consuming enough protein? When our body does not get enough protein, our body will take it from our hair first. So a common issue that you can see when you are lacking protein is you're dealing with hair loss, but it's coming from breakage. So as your hair is growing from your scalp, it is more brittle, it's more prone to breakage. So it feels like hair loss, but it is due to a lack of protein. Now, the very minimum usually sits around 60 grams of protein. I think it should be closer to 100.
Yeah.
And some people will even figure out their macros specifically according to their weight or their, dietary needs based on if they're building muscle, if they're trying to lose weight, but really focusing on protein and fiber. Now, another thing that directly impacts PCOS with diet is when you focus on protein and fiber, this helps regulate your blood sugar throughout the day. So you have less of these peaks and valleys when it comes to your blood sugar and your insulin spikes. So over time, this can improve your insulin sensitivity as well. When your hair loss is related to insulin resistance, that's the goal. We want to keep your blood sugar as even keel as possible so we don't have insulin spikes, so that you don't have this increase in testosterone. So first and foremost, it should start with your diet. plenty of fruits and vegetables, lots of protein, limiting foods that can lead to inflammation, especially if you're dealing with insulin resistant related PCOS. When you have pooling insulin in the body, this can also lead to inflammation. So you already have that going against you. So limiting foods that can lead to inflammation as well.
Yep.
And then when it comes to specific supplementation, there's a few that I personally will always take, whether my blood work says that it's high or low. Magnesium is one of them. Magnesium is a very common mineral that almost everybody is deficient in based on the way that our food is grown, medications that you're taking. Fluoride in your water will bind to magnesium, making it harder for the body to absorb it.
Okay, I don't think we have that in the UK.
Okay, probably not.
But I don't know. I don't think we do have added fluoride.
The US is the headquarters for garbage being in our food and water, so it's probably just an issue here.
Correct me if I'm wrong, someone.
So when it comes to minerals specifically, magnesium is one where there are so many things in our environment that are impeding the way that magnesium is absorbed. So, and two, another thing to consider, if you are able to check your magnesium in blood work, usually the threshold of it being high is usually still too low. So I like to see magnesium around a 6, and this is based off of functional medicine doctors and what they prefer as far as ranges for vitamins. Now, when it comes to iron, you have to be careful with iron because the body can really hold on to iron really, really well. So when you see somebody make a video or on social media or a blog post about, I was dealing with hair loss, I started taking iron and my hair loss improved, that is not safe for everybody to do.
No.
You have to take into consideration how your liver function is. How are you storing vitamins? Do you still get a period? When you have had a medical hysterectomy, when you are on birth control, when you have gone through menopause and you no longer have a period, your need for iron goes down. So we don't want you just randomly taking an increased amount of extra vitamins and minerals when it comes to iron,
vitamin A as well.
Vitamin E, vitamin A. I mean, there's quite a few you really have to be careful with. So, iron, vitamin D, magnesium, and zinc. Those are the biggest deficiencies in relation to hair loss. But you really need to check what your levels are in blood work before you start taking extra supplements. So I usually recommend that clients start with just a good, well-rounded multivitamin in general and a good probiotic. We want to work on improving the health of your microbiome to increase absorption. So diet, supplementation, being mindful of your liver function, being mindful of your gut health. These are all the very foundation for how do I start improving my hair loss.
I agree with that. Obviously, I agree with everything you're saying. It's all really awesome. And I'm seeing the comments coming in too. That's like a light bulb moment people are saying here and how interesting it is. And I also do want to say as well, everyone, I know what it's like when you're hearing all this information, and I want you to know from the basics of what I've been teaching you this week and in the program, this is all you need to do. Because my next question for Melissa is really going to be, what should you be avoiding, like the viral supplements that you'll see on TikTok? You might likely, after this podcast, you'll go on TikTok or you'll go on Google and search for a supplement that's going to help your hair growth. Whereas in fact, what Melissa has just said, it might be making things worse, the toxicity. So it's about doing the basics first, your protein, your fats, your fiber, looking at your insulin resistance, replenishing the nutrients that you're needing there rather than trying to find some random ass supplement out there. So I think, hold on a sec. So in your opinion then, so Melissa, what should women be avoiding for hair growth?
So
or what should they be doing?
One of the most beneficial things that you can do when you have reached that moment of desperation of, I am losing so much hair, And now I'm going to scour the internet, or I'm going to scour social media to try to find the answer. This isn't the answer that a lot of people want to hear, but hair loss is not a one pill fix all. Most people are dealing with more than one type of hair loss at one time. For an example, if you are dealing with PCOS related to insulin resistance and it is leading to female pattern baldness, and you have developed a fatty liver, which has changed your liver function, which is then changing the way you are storing iron and vitamin D, so you're deficient in those, you would also experience hair loss around your hairline or in your crown. So you have to address improving your insulin resistance, improving the amount of DHT you have in the body, and then working on vitamin deficiencies. So I would encourage everybody to do their homework when looking for a supplement for their hair loss, to read the label, see what is in the product. What is their DHT inhibitor? The most common DHT inhibitor that you will find in hair loss supplements, or a DHT inhibiting supplement, is saw palmetto. Now, saw palmetto is a phytoestrogen. So if your PCOS is related to estrogen dominance, you don't necessarily want to consume a lot of things that are considered a phytoestrogen. That may be something that you need to be mindful of until you regulate your estrogen levels. So reading through labels, does it have vitamin A? And also, what are the percentages? There's and I don't like to mention names because I don't want any company to feel like I'm coming for them specifically. There's a hair loss supplement that has grown in popularity over the last few years that's very high in vitamin A, but it does not have any of the B vitamins, and it doesn't have vitamin C, I believe. It is also very high in iodine. This could potentially be dangerous for some people with a thyroid issue because of the iodine. Not everybody needs an increase in iodine. And then also, because of the high amount of vitamin A, you cannot combine it with a multivitamin. And B vitamins are like Amazon workers. So when a specific organ needs iron, you'll have folate and you'll have B12 that are like, oh, let me help with your iron production. If you are not getting B vitamins through your diet, or if you're not getting it through your supplement, you can't combine certain things together. So I hear from clients all the time that will take a hair loss supplement along with a multivitamin. When it comes to vitamin A specifically, when you get too much vitamin A, this can lead to a toxicity. One of the symptoms of vitamin A toxicity is hair loss. So some people are taking this wide variety of supplements thinking, okay, this will be my answer, but they haven't read the labels to see what is in it. And so they're actually causing more harm than improving their hair loss situation. So you want to find vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin C, all of the B vitamins. Now, it's kind of a bonus point if your vitamin includes choline. Choline in textbooks is vitamin B4, but you'll usually see it on the label as choline. Just the basics when it comes to fat-soluble vitamins and minerals. And then you'll have extras. There can be herbs, there can be DHT inhibitors, there can be green tea. Green tea has caffeine. It helps stimulating the follicles for growth. So the biggest thing that I would encourage people to do is read the label. Take a little bit of time to do your homework. When you see a proprietary blend, go through what is in that proprietary blend and find out what those herbs do. And even just doing a simple Google search of raspberry leaf and hair loss, or raspberry leaf and sex hormones. Find out exactly what specific herbs are going to do potentially as you start taking it. Is it going to improve your hair loss, or can it potentially add to the problem?
It's like ashwagandha. A lot of people don't know that ashwagandha raises your androgens and then in effect increases your DHT and causes your hair to fall out. Yet a lot of women with polycystic ovaries take it thinking it's good for stress reduction. when in effect it is, but it's just not good for hair loss.
Yes.
So yeah.
So it's kind of all of these little steps that you have to take to get to the bottom of it. And this is why I think this is always an answer that people don't want to hear, because it requires you to be an advocate for yourself. It requires for you to do homework. It requires for you to have blood work done, potentially to work with a doctor. We're doing homework on the internet, on social media. It's a lot of work. It's not this, take this will fix all of your problems. It's one easy pill. But when you follow all of these steps of better determining what is causing your hair loss and better targeting your specific problems specific to you as an individual, your success rate short term, so immediately as you start to improve things, but then also long term, is much higher than just assuming, okay, I saw an ad for this. This was very convincing. I'm going to start taking this. You don't see results. You're now even more deflated than before you started taking whatever supplement it was. And then you're starting again from scratch. So it takes a lot of time.
Sparkly packaging. Sparkly packaging is what I call all these people, the companies that lure you in with that promise, and it either does nothing or makes you worse, and it's overpriced.
Anytime you see an ad where someone goes from, they're like, I took my hair, I'll use my front layer. I took my hair from this to this in 3 months. That is baloney. That is advertising. That does not happen.
Feel free to say bullshit. You don't have to like, oops, but you can say the bullshit word here. It's all good.
It's absolute bullshit. Yes. There are so many ads all the time that I will see. There was a sponsored ad a little while ago on TikTok for a shampoo and conditioner and a scalp serum. It was a very new company, not one that was commonly recognized. And you had people in the ads that were like, my hair went from this to this. The before and after were two different people. But it was such an engaging, it's here, the angles, it's fast moving. I mean, it looked good to the eye, and I could see how that could be convincing. And this is the frustrating part of supplements specifically. The hair loss supplement industry has become a $1 billion industry. And it's sad to think that companies or people would want to take advantage of the situation you're in, but that's the reality of things.
It is. I had to say women are now getting, and I hate using this word, but I've been there, women get desperate because their hair is their defining feature. And if they think, I can fix it with this pill, it's that desperation. They're willing to try anything, sadly.
Yes. Yeah. There was a study that was done years ago on how a woman's hair is 50% of her self-esteem. So if you're experiencing hair loss and you want to improve things, I would hope that in that desperation, it would lead to a fire that has been lit under your ass to the point where you are, I am sick of not getting answers. So I am going to do my homework myself. I am going to be my own advocate. I'm going to investigate into my diet and exercise and my hormones and all of these factors that come into play. I'm going to learn about what nutrients I need for hair, even to just differentiate between labels when you're looking for a supplement. But I would hope that at some point, the majority of women dealing with hair loss from any cause get that almost that inner rage of, you know what? I will take this on myself and I will figure this out myself. It's important to note that the only time that hair loss is truly devastating is when it has been longer than if you've been experiencing hair loss for 20 years, your hair will not regrow to what it once was. Again, the rule of thumb is typically 10 years. It can regrow, but it won't be exactly what it was 10 or 15 years ago. Or if there is scarring in your follicles. Once there's scarring in your follicles, you won't regrow hair.
Is that like inflammation sort of thing?
There's an increase in specific types of scarring alopecia known as CCCA, frontal fibrosing alopecia, and lichen planopilaris. These are the three most common. But you will notice for CCCA, it happens on the top of your head and it spreads out. It's kind of in between your part line and your crown, but it's you're bald. I mean, you start to notice large patches. When it's frontal fibrosing alopecia or lichen planopilaris, your hairline will go back. So all of this hair here will be gone. Your hairline will be moving back. It's a very recognized issue. And even just Googling frontal fibrosing alopecia, scarring alopecias, you can look for images to better determine that.
Yeah.
But unless there's scarring or it's been longer than 10 years, any other type of hair loss, even people that have been diagnosed with chronic telogen effluvium, or you have some type of chronic illness that's leading to hair loss, it can absolutely be improved. Absolutely.
So that will lead on to, well, that last question. And then what we'll do is we'll spend time answering you guys' questions for a little while about hair loss. So while we've got Melissa, we may as well, I was saying use you, but I mean that in the nicest possible way. So what we'll do is we'll discuss maybe if someone came to you for the basics, because I've actually got a question as well that I want to ask, but I will ask after. But if someone came to you just with the basics, so my hair is falling out, Melissa, what will I do? Like if they didn't know, what would you recommend? Like rosemary oil or some shampoo or something?
So because 95% of hair loss is being caused by something being off internally, one way that you can better determine before you have blood work, to kind of give you an estimate of what could potentially be causing your hair loss, is based off of where your hair loss is happening. So if it is on your part line, and women will even keep maybe like a ½ inch or a ¼ inch of their bang hair. Again, this scale is called the Ludwig scale for women. So when it's really bad, this whole area of the head will be very, very thin, paper thin. Like you can hold your hair up and completely see through it. This is related to your sex hormones. Now, this can be an increase in testosterone, a decrease in testosterone, estrogen dominance, a decrease in estrogen, a lack of progesterone, an increase or decrease in DHEA, because that will go hand in hand with certain sex hormones, and cortisol long term. When you are stuck in fight or flight or you have adrenal issues long term, the most commonly affected hormone is progesterone. Progesterone is the referee between estrogen and testosterone. So if your cortisol is high, which most of the time in blood work, when testosterone is low in women, their cortisol is elevated. So this type of hair loss is directly caused from your sex hormones. Now, one thing you brought up, the chin hairs earlier.
Yes.
Sometimes when you're experiencing hair loss on the top of the head and an increase in chin hairs, this doesn't necessarily mean an increase in testosterone. This can also be a sign of estrogen dominance. So again, this kind of takes us back to you have to have blood work done to check different hormones. Another thing to keep in mind when you are checking hormones specifically for hair loss, your sex hormones, one of the best times that you can go in is 7 to 10 days before you start your period. That's a good rule of thumb. So your doctor knows, okay, she's in this phase of her cycle. This is where those hormones should be. This is a healthy range for a common. Oftentimes when you have blood work done, you'll see the luteal phase, the follicular phase, and then it will give you a range of what estrogen, progesterone, testosterone should be. So you need to be mindful of where you're at as far as your period goes so you can better determine where your hormones should be. Sometimes your progesterone will need to be higher depending on the phase that you're in. Sometimes your estrogen will be higher. So that's something to keep in mind. But this is related to your sex hormones. Your crown and your hairline here, when it is diffuse, when it just seems like it's getting thinner, this is most commonly connected to cortisol and vitamin deficiencies, low ferritin, which is your iron storage, and something I didn't mention earlier about ferritin. When your iron is good and your saturation is good, but your ferritin is low, I like to see ferritin between 80 and 100. This will absolutely impact hair around your hairline, and it will eventually move back. So whenever people go in and they say, my hair is so thin right through here, and their doctor looks at their head and says, oh, you have miniaturization, it's female pattern baldness, it's low ferritin. Low ferritin will present itself the same way as miniaturization from DHT will happen on top of the scalp, but it happens on the side. When it's hair loss around the back hairline or behind the ear, not necessarily up into the crown, and it is patches or there's significant hair loss in the nape of your neck, this is usually associated with alopecia areata. Alopecia areata is an autoimmune condition. When you do your homework on autoimmune conditions, almost every single one can be connected to a gut health issue. So the lining of our intestines is 1 cell thick. The skin around our eyes is 15 cells thick. So 1 cell thick is very, very thin. So we have cells that are connected with tight junctions. They're called tight junctions. So gluten, food intolerances, alcohol, medications, stress, there are all sorts of things that can cause holes in those tight junctions. Once you have holes in between those cells, you'll deal with inflammation in the gut, but then proteins from the food that you eat and then toxins that your body is filtering out can recirculate through the body. This puts more stress on your liver because your liver is having to filter things out again. But this can lead to an autoimmune reaction. So when it comes to alopecia areata, because it's an autoimmune condition, when you strengthen your immune system, vitamin D is the master key to our immune system. Most people, when their vitamin D is low, their doctor will recommend taking between 5,000 and 10,000 IUs of vitamin D. This is a therapeutic amount. I don't recommend that people just willy-nilly do this on their own. This is something that will be directed from your doctor. But just to give you a rule of thumb, when the opportunity strikes you, it's a little different for you guys because the sun's not always out. But
we don't have any either.
the sun, 10 to 15 minutes in the sun, no sunblock, no sunglasses, short sleeves, basking like a cat in the sun, 10 to 15 minutes is close to the equivalent of 30,000 IUs of vitamin D. The sun is the very best source of the sun. So if there's ever an opportunity where the sun is shining, go outside and soak up vitamin D for a few minutes. It's amazing. But vitamin D is the master key to our immune system. Almost every cell in the body has a receptor for vitamin D. When you strengthen your immune system and you work on your gut health, if you have leaky gut, diverticulitis, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, IBS, any sort of gut issue, this can lead to issues with alopecia areata. Next, you'll have different like traction alopecia. This comes from styling. When there's a lot of tension on your hair, there's a muscle in our hair follicle called the erector pili. The erector pili is what gives you goosebumps on your body. That muscle is also responsible for holding on to your hair. So when you consistently cause tension with different styles, the erector pili can give up and say, you know what? I'm going to drop a hair. You're no longer going to grow hair. So when it is due to styling, braids, tight ponytails, switch up your hairstyle so you're not constantly causing the same tension on the same follicles. Loose ponytails on top of your head, you're okay. That won't lead to any type of tension that will cause that traction alopecia. And then you have scarring alopecias. So CCCA, FFA, frontal fibrosing alopecia, and then LLP, lichen planopilaris, or LPP, lichen planopilaris. These are typically diagnosed and you're given a steroid. I have my own theory on scarring alopecias. All the information that you can find on scarring alopecias will say it's caused by inflammation that leads to scarring. Inflammation doesn't necessarily mean scarring. There's also information that you can find showing that long-term, good dermatologists that will recommend anti-malarial drugs, which are anti-parasitic, have a better result long-term. But the percentage of people that deal with scarring alopecias is very, very small. It's very technical. That's usually something in videos. It's, you know, like a message me or comment on a video. We can discuss it further. But yeah, that's kind of a breakdown of what area will lead to different types of hair loss. So when you better determine the area of your head where it's sitting, excuse me, I forgot one. When your hair is happening all over, every single hair on your head, it's a diffuse type of hair loss. This is most commonly connected to a stress response and a pretty big one. So an illness, very common with COVID, but it can also happen with flu, with strep throat, thyroid issues. So even though it's a hormonal imbalance, it's stressful on your body when your thyroid hormones are imbalanced. So you have that stress response. If you've just had surgery, if you just had a baby, psychological stress, anytime you are in fight or flight versus rest or digest, you have this increase in cortisol production. That stress response can cause 30 to 70% of your follicles to immediately go into the shedding phase. This is why it's commonly diagnosed as telogen effluvium. Telogen is the shedding phase, but the actual term is called diffuse alopecia. There's also anagen effluvium for anybody that feels like they lose baby hairs. This is due to a toxicity issue. Now, it's commonly connected to chemotherapy, radiation therapy, but if you have an issue with your liver function or your kidneys, you're having a hard time detoxifying your body, you can start to see new hairs growing from the scalp, but if they fall out, this is most likely related to a toxicity issue. Heavy metal toxicities, medication, there's all sorts of issues, but it is a roundabout toxicity issue.
Wow. And you know, I'm getting tested on this after this, guys. I'm only joking. Remember, exams for all of you. No, that was amazing. I just, I'll be dreaming something funny tonight. So, so interesting, right, guys? It's just so much that we're not told about hair loss, and a lot of the time we're just told, oh, you're losing your hair, oh, it's just stress, or
it's stress, you got to calm down. How the hell are you supposed to calm down when you feel like you're going bald? That's one of those replies whenever a doctor says, girl, it's happening from stress, you got to calm down. Are you freaking kidding me? That's impossible. It's like trying to tell a woman to calm down when she's upset. There's just certain things you don't say that. Don't say it.
It's like a woman saying, I'm fine. No. Right. What we'll do, guys, because that is 50 minutes in, what we'll do is we'll spend about 15-20 minutes answering your questions. So even though I can't really see who you guys are, I'll put the question on the screen and we'll answer a few. So here we go. So Lauren here, can you read that, Melissa?
Yes.
Can you see that? Cool.
Okay.
All right, so this one's from Lauren.
I'm currently taking a vitamin that is 10,000 usually it's micrograms of biotin, 20 milligrams of zinc, selenium. I also need a multivitamin that has 100 micrograms of biotin, 50 milligrams of zinc, selenium altogether. Is that too much or is it okay? Okay, so this is a good one. If there is a potential for a liver function issue, if your LDL has come back being high in blood work, you probably will be okay. When there's a liver function issue and you are not storing vitamins and minerals properly, a lot of times you can't stay on top of vitamin deficiencies. Now, the biggest one in here that you want to be careful with is selenium. Selenium is very necessary for, the biggest one is converting thyroid hormones in the liver, but selenium won't necessarily lead to hair loss as a toxicity symptom, but you do have to be careful with selenium. Another thing to consider also with biotin. Now, biotin only became really popular within the last maybe 20 years. I remember in beauty school, kind of figuring out, oh my gosh, we can take biotin and my hair is gonna, I wanted my hair long enough to where I could brush my boob when I brushed my hair. That was my goal of like for growth when I was in beauty school. There are 9 different types of biotin. One of them is naturally So 8 of them are synthetic. Synthetic biotin will throw off blood work. So most labs use blood work or tests that they're made from a derivative of biotin. When you increase the amount of biotin that you're taking, this can throw off your blood work. It takes 72 hours for your body to process out biotin. We get rid of it when we urinate. But if you are at risk for having a heart attack, you need to limit the amount of biotin that you're taking. And if you are taking a bioavailable, so D-biotin or magnesium biotinate. Magnesium biotinate is 40 times more readily available to the body than D-biotin. You need to make sure that it is D-biotin and cut that amount down so it's not 10,000 IUs. If you are at risk for having a heart attack and you go into the hospital, they will draw your blood looking for a specific protein called troponin. If you are on a high amount of biotin and it throws off your blood work and gives you a false negative, and your doctor says, nope, you're good, you didn't have a heart attack because you don't have high amounts of troponin, this could be very, very dangerous. And this is something that is really only becoming an issue in the last 3 or so years, for more people being at risk for a heart attack. So be mindful of your biotin. If you're taking the right type of biotin, you're okay with just taking the daily amount. I even used to refer clients to 10,000 micrograms of biotin a day. I've cut that number down because more people are finding that they are at risk for a heart attack. So those are the ones that I would be careful with: selenium and biotin specifically.
Okay, perfect. Lauren, helps you. All right. Not that we kind of want to encourage just the use of supplements, but I know this is a question that every lady will be asking. So we'll just answer it. So if someone come to you, what's your top 3 supplements to encourage hair growth?
A good multivitamin, a complete multivitamin, and a multi-mineral. Usually they will be in 2 different supplements, or a lot of times a good, well-rounded prenatal will have both vitamins and minerals in them as well. But a complete multivitamin, a complete multi-mineral, even sea moss is a great example for getting minerals. Fulvic acid is another great example of something that you can take to get plenty of minerals. And a probiotic. Those are the absolute necessary for growth: a well-rounded multivitamin and a very good probiotic. And then for the third one,
what do you think about inositol for hair? Because if you have an inositol deficiency, this can cause hair loss.
Yes.
And I know women with PCOS need inositol.
Yes.
So yeah, I would
inositol is fantastic. Inositol used to be known as vitamin B8. Yes. But then it was discovered that we make a very small amount in our kidneys. So now it's no longer considered a B vitamin. There are so many things, so many processes in the body that need inositol. So inositol is a great one. But I don't know if I would have 3 for growth. If anything, I could add on top of a good multivitamin and probiotic, it would probably be magnesium.
Oh, okay. Okay. And that's good. That probably actually relates to the next question I have here, also from Hannah. So in the program that I have for my ladies, obviously I can't tell them to take supplements. We recommend to go off and research, and ZMA is one of them, which is your zinc, magnesium, and B6.
Okay.
So they take this at night time for polycystic ovaries, and it helps with the sleep mainly.
Yes.
So I think you're asking here, Hannah, should you be taking more magnesium on top of this? I think typically it's about 300 micrograms. I can't remember how much is in ZMA. But would you take more?
That's a good amount. So there are a lot of functional medicine doctors. One of them, his name is Dr. Artis. He has a podcast that is absolutely fascinating. He has talked about the benefits of taking magnesium and how most people are deficient. And he commonly recommends that people take close to 400 milligrams of magnesium a day. 300 is a pretty good amount. But something to keep in mind as well with magnesium, if you're wanting to increase your magnesium a little bit, make sure it is an ionic magnesium. So some type, usually it's like a salt water, or even just do magnesium baths, not Epsom salt, but magnesium flakes. Specifically, you can find them on Amazon. They're pretty easy to come by. And then glycinate or bisglycinate. So glycinate is an ionic magnesium that's bonded to an amino acid. Bisglycinate is ionic magnesium that's bonded to 2 amino acids. So those would just help you be even more calm and sleepy before bed. But really, magnesium, sorry, what was that?
No, I was going to say bisglycinate's always my second one after ZMA.
Yes. Yeah. And because, again, there are so many environmental factors that go against the way we absorb magnesium. So here's an example. There are different medications, birth controls, diuretics, antidepressants, antibiotics. They all impede the way that you absorb magnesium. So when you have people that are on medications for high blood pressure, anytime you're taking something that's meant to kind of dilate your veins and open things up so you have better blood circulation, your blood pressure can come down, things like this. Those medications are doing the same thing that magnesium does, but they also deplete your magnesium. If you are dealing with stress, if you are in constant fight or flight, your body needs vitamin C and magnesium, making you deficient sooner. When you are deficient in magnesium, you stay in fight or flight. Your body cannot go into a parasympathetic state. So magnesium really is something that most people would benefit from supplementing, but there are so many different forms of magnesium. Magnesium dioxide is one of the most common ones that you will find online in supplements. The absorption rate is about 4%. It's a waste of money. It's absolute garbage. Magnesium citrate is usually associated with the way that you go to the bathroom. So if you're constipated, magnesium citrate's a good one to utilize to help you poop on a regular basis. If all else fails and it becomes too confusing, magnesium and ionic magnesium or glycinate or bisglycinate are great options.
Definitely. Or magnesium spray, although this is going off topic a little bit. Magnesium spray is what, like we were talking about my video about smelling with polycystic ovaries, and magnesium spray really helps with that. But it's another way to get it subcutaneously. Through magnesium. So there's a few ways that you can get this. But PCOS women, we are 19 times more likely to be deficient than normal women who don't have polycystic ovaries, and even then there's a deficiency ongoing.
When it comes to insulin resistance specifically, it's a 28-to-1 ratio. It takes 28 molecules of magnesium to break down 1 molecule of sugar. When you have thyroid issues, hyperthyroidism, hypothyroidism, you will be deficient in magnesium. There's lots of chronic illnesses that will already impede the way that you absorb magnesium. It will impact those levels in your body. So I would say that would probably be my number 3. So a multivitamin, a probiotic, and then this. And honestly, 300 milligrams, that's a pretty good amount.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. And what was the reason? If you don't have a gallbladder, because I don't, I've had my gallbladder whipped out years ago due to polycystic ovaries, you'll be deficient in magnesium as well. So you need to supplement if you've got any form of gallbladder issues.
Yes.
So that's just an add-on.
The reason why is because your gallbladder will release bile. When you release bile, you better break down fat in your small intestine. When we eat foods that have fat in it, it enters our small intestine like a giant tear, like a giant droplet. We rely on bile to help break down that fat into very, very, very tiny molecules that fat soluble vitamins will adhere to. This is why fat soluble vitamins you're always told to take with food. If it can't adhere to a fat, it won't be absorbed in the body. So if you've had your gallbladder removed, you will absolutely have a bile deficiency, which will change the way that you're breaking down fat in your small intestine, which will commonly lead to deficiencies like magnesium, zinc, vitamin D, and iron.
Yeah, so it's also interesting as well. It's like, but the more you know, the more it leads you on to something else.
Yes.
And then you're like, oh God, your head just starts getting like, it can't cope.
I have two right here. I have notepads like this all over my house, because when I have those moments of, oh my gosh, I need to take notes because I'm not going to remember it all at once. I had one of these moments last night. It was like 3 a.m. I woke up and was thinking about milk thistle. I had read something on milk thistle, and it was literally like, I have to go to bed. I'm going to be up until tomorrow morning. But I was so in that moment of, oh my gosh, this light bulb went off. So yeah, I usually take notes and refer back to
you are like another me. It's like, it's just constant learning and writing stuff down.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right, we have another one here. It's just maybe an explanation rather than something. So this person loses hair around just the temples, but not on the top of her head. But she thought it was from stress.
Yeah, so it can come from stress, or it can come from vitamin deficiency, specifically vitamin D or low ferritin, which again, this is your iron storage. Those are the most common issues. So when somebody is dealing with hair loss from stress, to really know what's going on, there's a few questions that I'll ask in consultations, like, what are your sleep habits like? Do you have a hard time falling asleep or staying asleep? If you wake up between 12 and 4 a.m., if you wake up to urinate, this is a sign that there's too much sugar in your blood. There can be an issue with insulin resistance. If you wake up and you cannot go back to sleep, or even if it's you're up for 10 minutes and then you go right back to sleep, this can be a sign of an overproduction of cortisol. If your cortisol is good, your serotonin production is good, you will sleep like a rock the entire night. You're out and you're up the next morning. You don't wake up at all. But then also you'll have feelings throughout the day of, how do you feel first thing in the morning? Do you snooze your alarm a lot, or do you wake up before your alarm? Do you wake up feeling refreshed? Do you wake up feeling like you got a good night's sleep? How do you feel after lunch? Do you have this moment of like a period where you could crash? If you fall, or if you sit down on the couch, are you going to fall asleep? Do you need coffee to get you through the rest of your day? Do you think, let's say it's 2:30 and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted, I'm going to bed so early tonight. And then when it comes, 9:30, you're going to go to bed early and you're wired. You have enough energy to reorganize your kitchen. I'm going to take everything out of the cupboard. I'm going to move my plates over here and my cups over here. This is a classic sign that you are dealing with adrenal fatigue. You're stuck in fight or flight. So when you have hair loss in your temple area and you have issues with your sleep, yes, this is caused from stress. Working on your sleep hygiene, just like our oral hygiene, we have sleep hygiene, creating a sleep routine before bed. Anytime you have blue light, I wear blue light blocking glasses. Blue light will stimulate your hypothalamus in the brain. The hypothalamus is the very beginning of your HPA axis. This is what stimulates your fight or flight. Limiting things that are stimulating to the brain. Don't get on Pinterest and search through any type of idea before bed. This will stimulate your brain. Yes. Limiting coffee until I say like 10 in the morning. If you do consume coffee in the morning, you have to eat first. If you drink coffee on an empty stomach, this will skyrocket your cortisol. And then there's different things that you can utilize, adaptogenic herbs. Do your homework on these, find out which ones are right for you. Again, talking about ashwagandha earlier, but do your homework on those.
Rhodiola. Rhodiola is the one that I typically
Rhodiola is fantastic. It is absolutely fantastic. Lemon balm is another favorite of mine. Valerian root in third-party studies has been shown to be as effective as Valium or Xanax. If you do struggle with androgens, be careful with ashwagandha, but rhodiola is a fantastic one for women because it can help regulate other hormones as well. Lion's mane, reishi mushrooms. There are different mushrooms that you can use as an adaptogen. And then plant-based melatonin, not synthetic melatonin. That stuff is garbage. You should avoid that like the plague.
We can't get that here in the UK. They don't sell it at all. It's got to be prescribed by a doctor.
Okay,
even
that's
they don't
interesting.
Like
so you probably can't even get the phytomelatonin, the plant-based.
No, no melatonin whatsoever.
Is St. John's wort available?
Yes.
So most plant-based melatonins come from St. John's wort. When you encourage melatonin production in the pineal gland, we also make it in our cells mitochondria. This is the largest antioxidant that the body makes, but it will also help with your sleep. So anything that you can incorporate, magnesium glycinate or bisglycinate, anything that you can incorporate about an hour before you go to bed to help calm you down, this will help your sleep hygiene. We normally get a break from cortisol production while we're asleep. So sleep is a big one to focus on.
Okay, and just quick, I'll do a couple more questions, but just another couple of supplements that I recommend to clients is L-theanine and 5-HTP. So your 5-hydroxytryptophan.
Yes. When you're doing 5-HTP, you're helping the body better utilize ATP. That's your main energy source coming from a cellular level. And then L-theanine, there's actually some pretty interesting studies showing you can take just about any amount and there's no type of side effect that you would have. It is a great one for mood. It is absolutely needed for serotonin production. I love L-theanine. It's a wonderful amino acid.
For anxiety, it's really good. And racing thoughts. If you struggle with racing thoughts before bed, L-theanine, L-theanine, perfect. And it's a compound you find in green tea without the caffeine. So that's a really good one. All right, let me find another couple of good questions here. So here's another one. I think it's just maybe like an explanation again about what's been happening. So it's just sort of hair's been stuck in a cycle of post-baby hair loss. Bless. So perhaps just to see how we can get our hair growing again.
So this is really interesting because this is, if you were to go into your doctor would most likely tell you that this is chronic telogen effluvium. Postpartum hair loss is supposed to end around 9 months postpartum. It will happen between 2 and 9 months postpartum. If it goes beyond 9 months, something else is going on. If it's happening around your hairline, then this is either from being stuck in fight or flight or a vitamin deficiency. But where you're losing baby hairs, I would consider this anagen effluvium. This is related to a toxicity. So be mindful of what is in your environment. Be mindful of foods that you are consuming, anything you're putting on your skin, anything that your liver would potentially view as a toxin. Improving your liver function. Improving your liver function comes from pooping, urinating, and sweating on a regular basis. Our skin, our bowels, this is part of our excretory system. We're getting rid of things that our liver and our kidneys are filtering out. A little while ago, someone commented, I haven't been exposed to any toxins. I wouldn't have had a toxin issue. In Utah, I have mountains on the east side of the valley and I have mountains on the west side of the valley. We are in a bowl. So our air quality can go from good to garbage in a matter of days. I'm breathing those in. So I'm not, I haven't been in any type of chemical spill, where most people relate a toxicity issue to something crazy like that. But there's toxins in the air that I am exposed to all the time. So we want to be pooping on a regular basis, urinating on a regular basis, and sweating once a day. Detox baths are fantastic for that. Castor oil packs on the liver are fantastic for that. There are different supplements that will encourage the liver to detoxify better. N-acetylcysteine, milk thistle, dandelion root tea, TUDCA, TUDCA, fantastic for improving liver function. There's quite a few things that you can do your homework on. Increasing fiber is fantastic for the liver. What else? Limiting sugar, limiting alcohol, limiting processed foods, any way that you can help the liver detoxify better. This will help those brand new hairs, which are in the anagen phase, the growing phase, will stay in longer. They grow longer. So the better your body's detoxifying, the better you can get rid of any type of toxicity issue. Again, be mindful of foods, liquids that you are consuming. And then be mindful of what you're putting on your skin. Anything that's on our skin for longer than 30 seconds is absorbed into the skin. Lotions, laundry detergents, shampoos, body washes, soaps, even fragrance in the air can be viewed as toxins. They can even manipulate your hormones. There was something else I was going to say, and I don't remember. Dang it. But a lot of this comes from, let's improve your liver function so you're detoxifying better, and this type of hair loss will improve.
Pooping is good for everything.
It absolutely is. And I'm sorry, but there's nothing better than a good poop.
Caroline, the other coach in my program, she loves to talk about poop.
Yes, which we should.
We'll laugh, but it's good.
We should. What is the size? What is the shape? How often are you going? When you go to the bathroom, is there an oily film that's floating to the top of the water? When I was pregnant with my oldest, he's 16, I was on bed rest for 3 months. And I stayed at my mom's house, and I am obsessed with the BBC. I love television shows. And there was a show at the time where a dietitian would go into people's homes. Let's go over what you eat in a week. She'd put it all out on the kitchen table. And then she would change their diet. And then, we're going to go back in and redo blood work and see how your health is improving. She would analyze everybody's poop. That was a requirement. She would have to give a sample of your poop. She would send it to a lab to see how healthy you were. Yeah, there is so much we can learn just from how to go to the bathroom. But nobody likes to talk about it.
It's like, how is it looking today? Yeah. So we love talking about Poopian Revolution. So we'll have one more question for you then, Melissa, and then we are just going to wrap this out because we could talk for ages. It's been 1 hour and 15 minutes. And so obviously we will do this again though, guys, so don't worry. But the last question I have for you is really, and it's about TikTok again in a sense, and about getting caught into all these things that can help you. So I know one thing you have talked about before because I got it from you. Pumpkin seed oil and rosemary oil. I learned all about pumpkin seed oil from you.
Okay. Yes.
So how does this work, and is it superior to rosemary?
Yes. Okay. So when I first started researching hair loss, I took a list of the most common vitamins for hair growth, but then also for female pattern baldness into my doctor. And we also went over medications. And one of the most common medications that's prescribed for female pattern baldness is finasteride. When this medication first came out on the market, it was a black label medication. It still should be. It's made for men. All of the studies are on men, and doctors have a different version of Google. They have a whole plethora of information that they can do a search on. So we looked up
Dr. Darknet or something.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It's bullshit. We should have access to that. So it was the first paragraph. One of the first things that came up when taking finasteride is there are cancer-causing properties in this medication. And so I had this moment of, you've got to be kidding me. So you're telling me that a woman can potentially develop something, or she's going to be bald. That's the only option. You've got to be kidding me. So he said, well, you could always look into food-based DHT inhibitors. So that's what I did. I came home. I had one of my notebooks. I took all sorts of notes. So there are a huge list of food-based or plant-based DHT inhibitors: lycopene, lysine, rosemary, pumpkin seed oil, saw palmetto. There's quite a few. Pumpkin seed oil had a double-blind, placebo-controlled study. It was 76 men. It was 24 weeks long. Some took a placebo, some took pumpkin seed oil. All of the men that took pumpkin seed oil saw a 40% increase in their hair from taking pumpkin seed oil. This is measured by checking the ratio within a square inch of terminal hairs versus vellus hairs.
Wow.
Now, rosemary does the same thing. Rosemary is very expensive when you get it in an oil.
Okay.
Now, it can be beneficial to take this topically, to use any type of DHT inhibitor topically, but we convert testosterone into DHT with that 5-alpha reductase enzyme internally. So you are impacting it greater when you're taking it internally. If you do use rosemary topically, check the oil. What is the carrier that's in it? A lot of times it will be soybean oil. Soybean is very inflammatory. We want to reduce inflammation on the scalp as best as we can. And it can be more effective to take distilled water and a bushel of rosemary, bring your water to a boil like a tea, put rosemary in it, let it steep, and then pour the water into a glass spray bottle. You can find a 4-ounce glass spray bottle on Amazon for about $4. Spray that on your scalp twice a day. Store it in your refrigerator. It will last for 2 weeks. It's water and rosemary. There are no preservatives. It is just straight rosemary. If you want that dilation effect similar to minoxidil, put peppermint oil in it. That will help open up your follicles. But where it's a water, then your scalp isn't as oily. But when it comes to being cost effective, as far as taking something internally, pumpkin seed oil is more cost effective. It was proven in a double-blind placebo-controlled study. And then you don't have the issue that you would with saw palmetto, where it can be it's a phytoestrogen, and so it can raise estrogen levels for some people. So my go-to is pumpkin seed oil.
Amazing. It's honestly, I'm going out to buy some rosemary now and make my own because I've got some through there, and I'm like, I don't want to use it anymore, just in case. It's like soybean. See what we learn. Even I learn things.
Yeah. Again, I mean, going over labels can be so beneficial when you kind of dissect what is in things that you are taking or that you are putting on your skin. It can make a huge improvement when it comes to your overall health, but your hair loss too. And I would love to do a poop.
Yeah, I know. So this is actually a comment from my fellow coach and business partner, Caroline. So she's obviously loving your poop chat that much. So I will talk to you, Melissa, and we can do a poop workshop next.
Perfect.
I know Caroline will want to do that one because she's the expert. So that's amazing, guys. And this is also just one just saying thank you to us, because it really is interesting, but it's a lot to take in. So this will be available on all platforms for you to go back and you can watch it. And like I say, just to close out, Melissa is on Facebook, but she's also on TikTok. So just go and find her on TikTok
and on Instagram.
And I hardly use Instagram. I'm terrible.
Some people are so TikTok, that they love TikTok. Some people don't have it at all, and it's Instagram, and then some people still love Facebook. So
it's Facebook and TikTok for me. I just can't get into the flow, but I still use it. But I just can't get there. But whereabout can they find you? What's your username and handle on that?
It's my initials, MA Brows and Hair, and it's the same on every platform.
Yep. So I have shared her photo, guys. Well, I shared a screenshot of your TikTok profile. So it's that name. Just go and search for her, give it a like. You can ask her questions, and I'm sure Melissa will be happy to help you.
Absolutely.
But yeah, but I also want you to pop in the comments as well, even after you've watched this, #replay. How much do you want to see a poop workshop? You need to do it, because if no one's going to watch it, we won't do it.
So one thing that we could talk about in the poop workshop is the first question that I ask everybody in a consultation is, what is your gut health like? Do you struggle with constipation or diarrhea? If you struggle with constipation or diarrhea, first of all, why? Is there a pancreas issue? Is there a liver function issue? Is there a gut health issue? you are more likely to have vitamin deficiencies that will lead to chronic telogen effluvium. It's always diagnosed as chronic telogen effluvium. If you simply improve liver function, pancreas function, or your gut health, and you're pooping on a regular basis, you will better absorb those vitamins and minerals, and hair loss from those deficiencies will stop.
So I want to do a poop workshop now. Let's do it. Everyone in the comments, if you're still watching this, and hashtag replay remember afterwards, I want a poop workshop, and we'll make it happen.
Perfect.
We'll make it happen.
We'll talk some shit.
Yeah, well, let's talk shit, guys. Let's talk shit. So, all right, okay, I'm about to be ending this live. So I want you all to say thank you to Melissa as well, because she has taken the time out of her busy schedule to come and help little old me help you. Because like I say, I love polycystic ovaries and helping, but I don't know everything, and I want to be able to help you more. So if I can help you even just a little bit, I'm going to do it. That's what I want to do. So everyone's now saying thank you and yes to a poop workshop. Constipation. We don't want constipation. No. We want you pooping every day. Let's do it. Yeah. Melissa, I think we're onto something. Maybe Caroline, I think you're onto something with the poop.
Perfect.
Yeah. So, all right, guys, I'm going to end it. Thank you so much. I appreciate every single one of you, and we will be back soon with a poop workshop.